What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. Over the course of the last, I'd say, 5 days or so, the Atlantic has blown up. We have several areas of interest. We have two tropical named storms going on. We have a hurricane ongoing in the subtropical Atlantic. We have tropical depression Helene that made landfall as a Category 4 hurricane in the Big Bend region last night and has caused tons of issues and caused tons of damage and at least 30 deaths so far in the southeastern United States. We have tropical storm Joyce that is organizing and developing, and we have two areas of interest we need to watch as both have long-term potential threats towards land. The first one is in the Caribbean Sea over here, as another system coming off the gyre is expected to start forming in the next 5 days or so. And we have another area of interest in the main development region that is expected to organize and develop and potentially be a lesser Antilles threat. So we have a lot to talk about today. Let's go ahead and dive right into it. Here's the situation that we have. We're going to briefly go over Tropical Depression Helene at this current point, give the latest on that first and foremost because this is affecting people right now. Minimum central pressure is 982 millibars. Maximum sustained winds are 35 miles per hour. The next advisory will be out at 5 p.m. Eastern time. Here's the discussion from this morning. Helene has been racing northward, and the low-level center is now located over the southern Appalachians. Strong bands of heavy rain and gusty winds continue off and along the South Carolina coast. In addition, heavy wind gusts around hurricane force have been occurring this morning in portions of northeast Georgia and the western portions of the Carolinas, especially in higher terrain. The initial intensity was at 45 miles per hour. And here's the main thing right here. The main hazard is very heavy rainfall ongoing over portions of the southeastern United States, which is causing historic and life-threatening flooding. If you are in a flash flood warning, turn around, don't drown. We still have a very powerful risk. We still have a high risk of flash flooding going on right now for parts of Virginia, Tennessee, and North Carolina, and at least a slight risk from outside of St. Louis all the way to near the East Coast. So you're going to want to take this very seriously, pay very close attention to this, and that's pretty much what we have going on. This is, according to the cone, expected to linger in the next few days. It's expected to dissipate sooner rather than later as it gets weaker and weaker due to land interaction. It's going to merge with a frontal boundary as well as another low-pressure system ongoing. So that's what we have going on with Helene, and this will probably be the last time we officially update Helene unless we get get damage estimates, we get the death toll, all that stuff. It's very unfortunate. At least $6 billion of damage have been caused so far by Helene. That number is expected to continue to rise as we get more data and information. We also have two other tropical cyclones we need to pay attention to. We have to talk about Hurricane Isaac and Tropical Storm Joyce. We're going to go ahead and go over those right now. Isaac is now a Category 1 hurricane with winds of 75 miles per hour, pressure of 981 millibars. Hurricane force winds extend outward 15 miles from the center, and tropical storm force winds extend outward 70 miles from the center. And look where it's located, at 37.4 degrees north in latitude. That has to be one of the most northward hurricanes I have seen in a very long time. I know Hurricane Dawn back last year was around this level right here, so that's got to be pretty interesting to pay attention to. Here's the quick discussion that we have pulled up right here. It is expected to get up into an 85 mile per hour hurricane by the time we get into tomorrow, and then it's expected to start weakening due to cooler waters, increased wind shear, more dry air in the subtropical Atlantic, but it is going to potentially bring some impacts if we go ahead and show you the cone right here, potentially towards the not even towards the Azores, but definitely Azores could see some surf from this. It is expected to become post-tropical and dissipate over the northern Atlantic Ocean north of 50 degrees north. So that's something to pay attention to as well, and we will continue to keep you updated on that, and I will show you the satellite structure of all these systems in just a second. Next, we have Tropical Storm Joyce. Tropical Storm Joyce formed earlier this morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Currently has maximum sustained winds of 40 miles per hour. It's moving northwest at 13 miles per hour. at this current point in time. It is expected, according to the discussion, to get up to a 60-mile-per-hour tropical storm in the next 24 hours. But here's what we have in the discussion so far. Joyce has a short window of potential intensification for the next day or so. Deep layer vertical wind shear should be moderate to low, with warm sea surface temperatures along the forecast track. Mid-level humidities around Joyce are sufficient, but expected to dry in the coming days. Global models predict the vertical wind shear should increase, and the storm will likely experience dry air intrusions. The official forecast shows Joyce strengthening to 60 miles per hour on Saturday, followed by a gradual weakening next week. Dry convection should be stripped away by Tuesday, and Joyce is expected to become a remnant low at that point before opening into a trough. However, the GFS suggests this could happen even sooner. So that's what we have going on with Tropical Storm Joyce. That's going to be one of those named systems that stay out to sea, cause a potential threat to shipping concerns and all that. And we don't really have much to talk about right now, but I will show the satellite presentation in a little bit down the road in this video. But we have two other areas of interest that we need to get through before we get to that. And those two areas of interest are what really concern me, especially as those look like they're going to be our long-term threat. Let's go ahead and start with the more obvious one right here. With this one, we have a 30% chance of formation in the next 7 days. Here's the situation. An area of low pressure could form over the Western Caribbean Sea by the middle of next week. Environmental conditions are expected to be conducive for slow development thereafter, while the system moves generally northwestward, potentially entering the Gulf of Mexico by the end of next week. 30% chance of formation in the next 7 days. But I do want to hone in on something very quickly. They're expecting this to potentially form by the middle part of next week. And from modeling I've been looking at, it looks like it's going to be developing starting around Tuesday and Wednesday, which, if that's the case, then the NHC is pretty confident that something is going to happen in the Caribbean Sea, and that could potentially be a threat again towards Florida. I've seen some potential threat towards Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, but the threat for right now is Florida. I know I said Texas and Louisiana last time around, but ultimately, the model run's been just kind of rather consistent with the eastern half of the Gulf of Mexico again, which would be really bad news because Helene just made landfall in the Big Bend region of Florida, causing a ton of damage to much of the southeastern United States that, quite frankly, it's still causing a lot of damage over there. So we're going to have to pay attention to this, as this does have a potential, it does raise a higher threat level, at least in terms of people and buildings getting impacted, than this area of interest out here in the main development region. An area of low pressure could form over the eastern tropical Atlantic by the early to middle part of next week. Environmental conditions are expected to be conducive for slow development thereafter, while the system moves generally westward at 10 to 15 miles per hour. This also poses a 30% probability of development, but that's more of a lesser Antilles threat as the main development region continues to wake up and things continue to really show signs of development. So let's go ahead and get to the satellite presentation. Right now, we're going to go ahead and zone in a little bit on Hurricane Isaac. We're going to go ahead and start with Isaac right here. Right now, Isaac has an eye, as you can see right here. The eye's popped out right there. It's a pretty decent-looking hurricane right there, as it is showing some times of intensification. And the fact that this is going to be a mid-range Cat 1 this far north and outside of the tropics, this isn't even in the tropical Atlantic anymore. This is in the subtropical Atlantic, folks. So ultimately, what you have going on here is basically it's over an area of relatively warm water, weak wind shear, and let's go ahead and show you the dry air aspect of it. It's over an area of relatively moist air, and it has that good convection and good spin to it over here. It's also a very small system as well. So the fact that this is developing pretty quickly and strengthening pretty quickly is pretty phenomenal, to say the very least. The good news is Isaac is not going to be affecting anyone. It's going to mainly stay out to sea, although shipping areas and shipping concerns are the main threat for this one right here. Just wanted to show the satellite presentation because this has been getting better and better each day, and we're going to have to watch it. Let's go ahead and next show the Tropical Storm Joyce. as well. Tropical Storm Joyce has been organizing and developing. You're seeing more and more convection firing up. You're seeing that center start to pop out a little bit more. And ultimately, it has 24 hours to develop before wind shear starts taking it. And I'd argue wind shear is starting to already chew at the core, not the core of it, but chew at the storm a little bit right here on the northern fringe of it. There's a lot more wind shear up here than there is near the center of it, which is why it's going to keep strengthening. But once that wind shear gets closer to the center of circulation, then you're going to get to that point where ultimately you have where ultimately that wind shear is going to start chipping away at the core of it, and then you're going to see the system get dissipate in the next few days or so. And now let's go ahead and move on to the Western Atlantic over here, because we have to pay attention to the Caribbean Sea and Gulf of Mexico once again. I know Helene just happened and everything's going on with that, which, by the way, there's still a lot of flash flooding right there going on, especially in areas in North Carolina and all that. I'll go ahead and pull up some of the warnings that are going on. The entire western state of North Carolina is under a flash flood warning, so that's pretty concerning to say. I'm going to go ahead and show you the radar screen. There's not much convection, there's not much rain in North Carolina, but because so much of it was dumping over that, there's just a bunch of flash flood warnings in the the western half of North Carolina and Virginia over here. And then you have this blob of convection associated with Helene over Illinois, Indiana, Tennessee. This is a very far-reaching system right there. But anyway, what we need to pay attention to in the Western Caribbean Sea is the Central American gyre once again. The gyre is what caused Hurricane John to form. The gyre is what caused Hurricane Helene to form. Both were major hurricanes around the same time. And that was one of those scenarios where it just the gyre just popped out a double whammy, where it gave a major hurricane in Mexico and a major hurricane to the southeastern United States. Worst case scenario right there for that. But now we have to watch the gyre again, because the gyre has been very active this year, and it's going to continue to remain relatively active for the next few weeks or so, as the Madden-Julian oscillation is in full force in the Atlantic Ocean, and you're seeing an increase of convection just pretty much all over the place, and that's what's going to help drive the Central American gyre to really blow up and really ramp up from there. And then what we got to pay attention to also is the moisture component right here. There is a little bit of wind shear right now in the Caribbean Sea thanks to the outflow of Helene, but that is expected to subside in the next few days and allow for tropical development to ramp up and potentially start get going over there. But what we need to pay attention to for now is watch off the coast of Nicaragua, with convection starting to fire up in the next few days or so, and then as the system approaches the Gulf of Mexico in the later part of next week, we're going to have to keep very close eye on it as well. But overall, the main threat we need to pay attention to, Yucatan needs to be on watch for this once again. Cuba needs to be on watch for this once again. Matter of fact, I would argue that Belize should also be on watch with this if this system goes a little bit further to the south than anticipated. And the Gulf Coast should absolutely be watching out for this, while of course recovering from Hurricane Helene, cleaning up from the damage from that, and continuing to monitor the situation. Right now, the main focus should be doing all the damage assessments, cleaning up from Helene, and then going on from there. And then after the system passes, as it's expected to form by a lot of models, then start the rebuilding process, because this is going to be a very chaotic next at least couple of weeks as the season really ramps up. I told you guys it was a backlog season. You guys can't doubt me now. We now have 10 named storms in the Atlantic, and we have a couple more coming as well. So regardless of that, let's go ahead and pivot over to the eastern tropical Atlantic for our last area, which is that area of interest over there. Here's the situation. The tropical wave right now is currently located south of the Lesser Antilles. Here's what we have going on. Here's what we're looking at. The main development region is now much more moist than ever. It's very primed for development, and this is going to be our big October surprise. The main development region waking up instead of September, it happening a month later. And we also have another tropical wave coming off the coast of Africa I want to pay attention to, considering how primed the development is over here. We were looking at it all season. Things weren't going off in the main development region. Dry air was intruding it a lot. The Sahara dust was still in there. Not anymore, folks. Not anymore. It's now much more moist. It's a lot less sheared, and we are ready to go, and we are ready to watch this system out here in the main development region. This does pose a long-term threat for the Antilles due to the returning steering currents that are going to be coming thanks to the Bermuda High and a bunch of other factors we're going to have to pay attention to. So we will keep you updated on all of that. Let's go ahead and pull up some modeling right now as well. Let's go ahead and start with the ensembles. We're going to start and go Atlantic wide for this one. That's United States wide. I'd like to pull this up mainly because this is going to be a very chaotic next couple of weeks. And let's go ahead. This is the 0Z European ensembles. We're going to go ahead and go out to about 10 days out over here. Here's the situation we have with the European going on right now. Here with Joyce, it's expected to kind of organize into a tropical system and then dissipate. And then we have another system coming off over here that has some ensembles showing a potential threat towards the Antilles, while others have it remaining out to sea as a potential major hurricane, a potentially big ace maker, potentially big rapid intensification system. And we also are watching this potential threat over here in the Bay of Campeche, which the Europeans very fond of providing Campeche systems. And I'm going to be brutally honest, given the synoptic conditions, I do not think it's going to be staying in the Bay of Campeche over here, and I think it's going to more so head towards the Gulf Coast due to synoptic conditions I've been paying attention to in the next week or so. Let's go ahead and show you the GFS ensemble runs right here. This is the 0Z GFS right here. And right here, similar situation, although more ensembles want this heading potentially towards the Gulf of Mexico, and more ensembles are potentially having this system push further to the west towards the Antilles over there. Let's go ahead and show you the 12Z runs right here. 12Z, a lot more of the runs want this to impact the Gulf Coast, some of them in Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, those areas right there. And basically and then you have this area of interest in the main development region that could really go off and potentially be a very big threat down the road. First for shipping concerns, and then as the Bermuda High starts to rebuild, this could be an Antilles threat, but we're going to have to watch it. Let's go ahead and show you some operational runs right now as well. Let's go ahead and start with the GFS operational run to kind of show you what we're looking at in that regard for today. So here's the situation. This system over here, Joyce is expected to weaken and dissipate, while this system starts to organize and develop into a pretty big hurricane, potentially a major hurricane before moving out to sea right there, while this area of interest starts to organize and develop and potentially get down to a 998 millibar tropical storm from the 12Z. Just out of curiosity, the 6Z run, just to show you that, had the system in the Bay of Campeche over here, and the 0Z run had the 0Z run pretty much had the system stalling out and making landfall as a major hurricane near New Orleans in Louisiana before doing some sort of maneuver and heading towards Florida. Okay, yeah, that's not... I'm sorry, but GFS, that's not happening. Synoptics does not support this kind of maneuver right there. I'm sorry, but no. And next one we're going to show you is the Canadian run. CMC has been pretty interesting. CMC wants this, actually does not want the system out in the main development region to organize and develop right away, but rather it'll take a few more days before it organizes and develops and then starts to ramp up in intensity. Meanwhile, if you pay attention to the Caribbean Sea, this system already starts to organize and develop and then move towards Alabama, Florida, pretty much making landfall in the Florida Panhandle just west of where Helene did, which would only exacerbate the issues that are going on over there, and that's the Canadian right here. Let's go ahead and show you the Icon run as well. Icon's been pretty interesting, having the system enter the Gulf of Mexico. Icon has a relatively slow developing system right there, which I do find kind of interesting. So we're going to have to watch it down the road and pay very close attention to it. Meanwhile, this system out here really ramps up, organizes, and quickly intensifies in the next few days or so while hovering in the eastern in the eastern Atlantic. So we're going to have to pay close attention to it. But regardless, hurricane season is lighting up. We are now entering a very active phase of hurricane season. We have Isaac out there. We have Joyce out there. We have 2 new areas of interest. We might have some other areas of interest tagged as the time goes on. And that's all stuff we're going to have to keep you updated here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. With that being said, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps us out, helps us get more videos out like these. The goal of this channel, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. If you want to come talk tropics with us or just hang out with us, be sure to join the Storms United Discord server. The link is in the end screen. Also, shout out to Daniel as an official sponsor of the Pat's Path Predictor channel. He has been a member of my Patreon for quite a while. If you'd like to be an official sponsor or support the channel more directly, be sure to join the Pat's Path Predictor Patreon. There's 2 levels, Friend to Pat for $5 a month, and official sponsor for $10 a month. So if you'd like to do that, be sure to join that. It's the first link in the description down below. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.